Well, Nathan and Michelle, we found out that CUPE will be holding a press conference in about a half an hour at the Sheraton, not far from where I'm standing. But you can see it's very loud out here outside of Terminal 1 as they have been picketing all morning. And the big chant that we're hearing right now is "Don't blame me, blame AC." They're referring to Air Canada since that CUPE went on strike early on Saturday morning and then defying that back-to-work order coming from Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu and saying that this is what they need to do in order to get a good contract, and that contracts should be decided at the table. As we know, the union rejecting the government's order to enter into binding arbitration. One of the main reasons the union had talked about that is because once a deal is done through binding arbitration, the workers you see behind us aren't able to vote on that contract. Many of the people...
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, looking into this whole strike thing, there's been a lot of people sharing different numbers on all different social media platforms. And we know that, well, the immigrants that are coming in make way more money than actually most hardworking Canadians. But in this case, they make more money than almost 85% of flight attendants. And now, these corporations, I'm going to dive into this here a little wee bit. So, the way that what these corporations do is, this is how they've been running their abuse. Now, of course, it's all corporate greed. And we're going to dive into a little bit more of this whole Air Canada and a lot of buried past that has led to this monopoly. But back to kind of this whole pay thing. There's a huge pay gap within the flight attendants organization and job criteria. And those who work there, and not necessarily for a long period of time, but work their way to the top, make fabulous, I'm talking absolutely insane amounts of money. But the majority of them, well, they don't make crap. Now, if we were to rewind this to 10 years ago, they made pretty good money. They made a fair wage with little bonuses and stuff that actually gave them, well, saved them a pile of money, considering that they had free flights if there were seats untaken in order to pretty much go anywhere they wanted in the world, and a lot of these other little kind of pretty cool bonuses. But since the elite takeover of Canada and the destruction of our entire society, economically, morally, well, just every aspect of it, this is what we're running into. It is illegal in Canada to work somebody without pay. Period. Take it to the presses. Now, many governments have overlooked this. I don't know why. I didn't have the time to even get involved into that because I was too busy falling into multiple rabbit holes that led me to, well, some pretty solid evidence, which we're going to get into on this episode. Let's just start with this, the CPAC presser that the attendants had. And from there, we're going to break down the who's who and who's owned who's, part of who's, worked for who's. Yeah. We're going to weave. What I'm going to show you today, I'm surprised more media, well, I'm not surprised, mainstream isn't talking about it, but even independents aren't really starting to expose because it is so frequently in the open. It's so, they don't even hide it anymore, people, because they know media are bought and paid for. They don't even hide in the shadows. Why? They come right out and punt and kick Canadians around because nobody's telling. Nobody's reporting on it. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let's dive in. And yeah, have I got a show for you today?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I want to say thank you for joining us here today. My name is Candace Rennick. I am CUPE's National Secretary Treasurer responsible for finance and operations at the National Union. I wish that you were joining us here today under better circumstances, but instead, we are here as one of Canada's most profitable companies is using every tool at their disposal to impose poverty wages and to crush our members' charter rights. Our members' only goal is to be paid for their time at work. I want to begin by speaking directly to the Canadian public and the uncertainty and the chaos that you're experiencing. We deeply, deeply regret the impact that this is having on your families and on your lives. Our fight is not with you. We do not want to be here. Our flight attendants certainly do not want to be here. But these workers, who are mostly women, have waited too long to have their issues addressed. They have been subject to unfair treatment and exploitation every day on the job for far too long. They have waited over 10 years to have their voices heard. They waited through COVID, they waited through record high inflation, and this is their moment to bargain. And now, after 9 months of Air Canada stonewalling negotiations, the federal government's decision to take away their right to have a say in their future is simply not something that we are able to support. In good conscience, we cannot look away while this happens. We cannot and we will not turn our back on these workers. We will not turn our back on these women. The pathway to a resolution here is through a negotiated settlement at the bargaining table. That is where our focus will be. That is where our focus will remain until these workers achieve a fair collective agreement. I'm now going to turn it over to our National President, Mark Hancock.
Well, thank you very much, Candace, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Hancock, and I'm the National President of CUPE, the Canadian Union of Public Employees. I want to begin with a passage that I think speaks volumes to the moment that we're in right now. The right to strike is not merely derivative of collective bargaining. It is an indispensable component of that right. That's from Supreme Court Justice Rosalia Bella in 2015, when she upheld the charter rights of workers in this country to withdraw their labor. We are here today because we are standing up for the rights of our members and for the rights of Canadians under our Constitution. The right to free collective bargaining, including the right to strike, is a fundamental right that is protected by our Charter. It is an essential part of collective bargaining and for workers to have a say in their collective future. These rights have to mean something. And real negotiations cannot happen if only one side is banking on the government taking away the rights of another party. And that is what has happened here. We are here because of Air Canada, a company that clocked $3.5 billion in profit in the past few years, and a company that thinks simply paying workers for their time on the job is too much to ask. Nevertheless, we remain committed to finding a deal, and we welcome any assistance that helps us find a way to reach a freely negotiated collective agreement, an agreement that our members can ratify. We will not resolve this by taking away the rights of workers who are already struggling to make ends meet. Thank you, and we have time for some questions.
The CBC, just wanted to know, your workers have now, and your union has instructed them to defy 2 back-to-work orders, the one that expired yesterday at 2 and the subsequent one that expired today at noon. What's the roadmap forward here if Air Canada refuses to come back to the table? Would you just continue to defy these orders? What are you willing to do? Be fined, go to jail? What's the roadmap here?
We will not turn our back on these workers. We will not turn our back on these members. We're going to continue to support those flight attendants that are walking the picket lines here at Pearson and across the country. We will do whatever it takes to get them a collective agreement that they can vote on.
When it comes to...
follow-up just to Wesley, is that okay?
Sure.
Wesley, on the call last night with members, obviously there was a tremendous amount of anxiety about people losing their jobs. Are you worried about people's stomach to stay on the picket line and not cross back over for fear of losing their job?
Not at all. Our members have remained strong and will continue to remain strong and have reached out saying that they're fully supportive of this and this needs to happen. They're no longer willing to accept the norm.
Mark, the Labor Relations, the CIRB has declared this is a lawful strike. The strike is over, they're saying. Do you know that people will go to jail potentially and your union will face hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in fines? What's the limit that you're prepared to exert here to try to make your point?
There's no limit. We're going to stay strong. We're going to stay committed to making sure that those workers can do the job that they love doing and actually be able to afford a roof over their heads, to afford caring for their families. And if it means folks like me going to jail, then so be it. If it means our union being fined, then so be it. We're looking for a solution here. Our members want a solution here, but that solution has to be found at a bargaining table.
There has been a relative amount of goodwill from the public, according to them.
Yeah.
But as the strike goes on, that may change, especially since you've defied these 2 kind of back-to-work orders. What is your message to the public? A lot of people who have been in that airport just out the door there for 4 or 5 days now with nowhere to go.
Yeah, and I think Candace talked to that very well. We are sorry that the public is caught up in this. We're sorry that people are stranded across the globe. That was not something that we wanted to be an impact. I was telling some folks yesterday, I'm staying here at this hotel and went outside my room to come down, and there was a family sitting on one of those round couches they have in the hallways. They had their suitcases and they looked distressed. And as a human being, as somebody that cares about folks, that had an impact on me. And we're hearing the stories and we get the frustration that folks are having. There's life-changing events happening across the globe. There's people that have lost family members. There's medical appointments. There's vacation, and people need to be able to enjoy some time in the summer with their families. And we are, as Candace said, and as we've all said, we are sorry that they are being caught up in this.
When it comes to the negotiations, when was the last time there's been contact? Have you reached out to Air Canada to say, hey, while this is all going on, can we just get back to the table?
I'm not sure when the last contact was made, but we have made it very clear that we're all still here at this hotel, and while we enjoy room service, we're not here for a holiday. We're not here for a vacation. We're here to do the work. We're here to negotiate a collective agreement. The employer is not here. We want to get a deal, but it takes 2 sides to commit to meeting and to working through some of the challenges that are facing us.
For the general public who may be confused by this, I mean, it does sound like you're sort of waiting for a call. Is that what you're waiting for?
Not necessarily waiting for a call, waiting for something for the employer to show up and say they're ready to bargain.
Would it be worth calling and say, hey, let's
I believe there has been some. We have reached out to the employer. I think Wesley did that today or last night. So
And what was the response?
I don't know. Wesley, do you want to talk to that?
There's been no response from the employer.
No response.
Nothing.
When was the last time negotiations were actually happening at the table?
That would have been Friday night. Friday night.
For the sake of the broader labor movement, and you kind of alluded to it answering Sean's question, there's no turning back here for you guys. Is that how you see it? Like this is something that you need to see to the end, either solution through the resolution at the bargaining table, or just an unending defiance of the law. One or the other.
None of us want to be in defiance of any law. That's not our...
What you are, right?
I'm trying to answer the question. None of us want to be in defiance of the law. But as we've said repeatedly, we're going to stay committed to those workers that are walking the line. You know, the employer has, or the government has said that we should go to binding arbitration. And binding arbitration is sometimes a solution that some unions will work. We're already in the courts on 107. The fact that the government has used 107 in this case and in previous cases sends a very strong message to my union, but also to the labor movements in the public. And we will get through the courts. I'm very optimistic that we will be successful in the courts. But as I said yesterday, and I said a number of times, we're looking at 10 years probably before this works its way through the courts. And our members do not have 10 years to wait to have their rights restored.
Did you prepare any consequences, or what are the consequences of the continuing strike?
Sorry?
What are the consequences of the continuing strike? Just like government forced back to work and strike continuing. What are the consequences?
We'll find out. I mean, there's a variety of options, I guess, that could happen. But again, our resolve is with those women and those men that are walking the picket line that need to be fairly compensated for their time.
Mark, what kind of support are you getting from other unions in Canada right now? Because this is a defining moment for trade union movement in many ways.
Yeah, it's a bit of deja vu from a few years ago when we were fighting the Conservative government here in Ontario with our education workers. We're seeing support from the Congress. There was a CLC.
I'm going to interrupt on that. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to show you this. This man is not a conservative. I will prove it to you. This was today.
Today is Pierre Poilievre's by-election. If he gets elected, I'm wondering, what's your advice to him going into the fall sitting of the Parliament?
Work with the Prime Minister.
How so?
Let's Team Canada. Let's put our political stripes aside and start working together collectively on large infrastructure projects, on other areas that he can cooperate with the government.
Would you have plans to meet with Poilievre to push that message and make sure that he is working with the Prime Minister?
All I want to do is move forward collectively as a government. I don't care about political stripes. The person I'm working with right now is the Prime Minister of the day. And as far as I'm concerned, he's doing a really, really good job.
He's doing a really, really good job. He's doing such a good job. He's representing Canada so good that he didn't even get invited to the meeting they're having on the war in Ukraine today. Where's Canada's representation? It's the same Liberal Party. And this guy is a Liberal. The whole teachers' union, don't put it on the backs of Conservatives. Ask any Conservative out west what they think of this guy, and they will tell you straight out, this is not a Conservative. This is a Liberal. Big difference. They took over the party. In Ontario, you guys actually have other Conservative parties trying to run. They get zero media. You got Derek Sloan and a bunch of others out there who are trying to rebuild the Conservative movement. But they're not getting any headway. Why? Propaganda. They control the airwaves. The CRTC regulated Liberal appointees control everything you see and hear. This is the guy they want to be leading Ontario.
Considering the position he's been put in, I challenge anyone to try to deal with Donald Trump, myself included. He's a different type of cat. But we're united. We know what we need to do. And we know that we need to cut the regulatory burdens off of companies, lower taxes, put money back into people's pockets, support companies that need investment to grow and expand here. and onshore, the procurement side. It's absolutely critical.
Do you hear the insanity of what he's saying? This man has no morals. He is dirty to the core.
Canada workers, anything for your Canada workers? What's your message?
Well, everyone deserves a fair wage for a day's work. They order them back to work, and I think it has to be in the best interest of the workers, the company, and most importantly, the people of Canada. So I'm glad they'll be sitting down and talking, but let's keep the airlines moving.
Isn't it a complete disaster though? I mean, we've got the unions are freezing, the workers say they won't go back to work. We've got thousands of people stranded. They don't know how they're getting home. Like, this is not worked out, right?
That's up to the federal government to make sure they sit down at the table. That always happens when you have labor issues. But they'll work it out. It's happened before, and they'll get things moving.
Okay, thanks everyone. Do you have any plans to go to DC anytime soon?
What an absolute joke. He will not call out Carney. He will not call out the Liberals. They're the same party. Nothing's changed. He doesn't care about you either. Dirty. These politicians are dirty.
Meeting last night of the Canadian Council, where support was unanimous from unions, public sector unions, private sector unions, Canadian unions, international unions. It was very reassuring for Candace and I to be on that call with all of these labor leaders, who not only said that they supported us, but that they would, of course, act as things approach. As we continue moving forward. So, I mean, in the union movements, there's a lot of solidarity, and solidarity is not just a word. We saw it a few years ago when we were fighting Bill 28. I don't have any concrete examples of what that means at this point, but we're very assured that the rest of the labor movement will be supporting us through thick and thin.
Some of the flight attendants outside have said that some of their colleagues are stranded overseas because of the job action, because of the shutdown of service. Can you just tell us about some of the flight attendants who are stuck in other countries around the world with no way to get home, or are they able to get home? What is the process?
I'm going to ask Wesley to answer that, but I can assure you that we've been dealing with the employer on this, and it's the employer's responsibility to make sure that those workers are safe. We've also said that if the employer is not going to take those steps, then QP will make sure that those folks are safe.
Have you received any messages from the government or law enforcement about to obey the order, or do you have any kind of fine or something like?
No, there's no indication of what fines or other things may look like at this point.
You heard directly from the labor minister at all?
I have not talked to Patty since Minister Hayduk since Friday night.
And just to be clear on what you're saying here, is what's QP's direction in terms of what you're telling your flight attendants about striking right now?
We're telling our flight attendants we're going to support them. We're going to continue to support them. We're not going to abandon them. We're not going to leave them in the lurch. We're going to continue to support them. We're here to do whatever it takes to get a collective agreement that works for them and their families.
So plan is to continue striking?
Pardon me?
Plan is to continue striking?
Yes.
For the stranded flight attendants, can you just tell me a little bit more about that, just how many are stranded, and again, the supports that are being provided?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do answer that.
Yeah, so we're thinking there's a couple hundred that are out there. I wouldn't necessarily call them stranded. They just don't understand when they're going to be coming home, obviously, because the airline's not functioning. All of them have hotels. All of them have expenses. If there's any issues, they've been reaching out to myself or any other union executives. We've tied up with unions in the United States to offer EAP support. We have a robust EAP support here as well. Our Health and Safety Committee is around the clock 24/7, so they're very well looked after by us. We haven't heard anything from the company on any challenges on that front, so we trust they're being looked after. And many of them, as far as I was made aware this morning, have made their way home, whether that be on passes or deadheading home. So,
what's the EAP?
pardon me, Employee Assistance Program.
Mark, could you get any sense from other union leaders that this could manifest in wider work stoppages in other unions?
We haven't gone there with those folks, but their support was very clear. And when we were in that dispute a few years ago, discussions were ongoing about what that support would look like, which included shutting down other work sites. So we're not at that point now. That's not a threat, it's just a possibility. And I know those leaders of other unions have been extremely supportive, and I know that they're paying very close attention to what's happening here, not only because they support CUPE, they support our members that are walking those lines, but also because they may be next. And we've seen a few other unions impacted by 107. So some of them have already been impacted, and others are going into bargaining, and 107 seems to be a tool that this government is using very, very often.
You could pay millions, thousands of dollars in fine. Is the QP ready for this? Do you have a special fund, or could you afford it?
Well, of course, we don't want to be spending money, members' money on fines. Having said that, we also have a responsibility morally and otherwise to these workers. And if there are fines, I had a message to Premier Ford a few years ago, and my message is very much the same. If you're going to fine us or you're going to try and take us on financially, then you can take us to court and we can see where that plays out.
Just back to the scheduling of flight attendants, Mark. Have flight attendants been scheduled to come back to work? In other words, is the onus on them not to respond according to the scheduling system? I'm just wondering about the mechanics of that right now. Because the airline said they were going to get back to business today. So were they getting messaged, or can you illuminate a little bit how they're being directly contacted?
I can't answer the contact piece, but I can tell you that if Air Canada thinks that planes will be flying this afternoon, they're sorely mistaken. That won't be happening today. Wesley, do you want to talk to the scheduling or no?
Yep. Morale of some of your members on the QP line. Are they feeling more emboldened today than they were, on day one of this? Or are they starting to, lose faith that this is actually going to go their way? The longer this goes, the more direction there is from the Fed to the court.
I haven't actually been out on the line today. I'm going to go there a little bit later on this afternoon. But I can tell you that all of these members, these workers, nobody wants to be walking the line. There is some fear that something may happen to them as individuals. We've been reassuring them from the national union as well as the locals that we will have their backs. We will support them, each and every one of them, and that they have the full support of our 750,000 members across this country and the full weight of the national union as well as our locals and the component.
Mark, you've been at the front end of a lot of strikes from labor action. Have you ever had 99% plus on the on vote-in, buy-in?
Not that I know. I mean, we have our locals range in size, right? From
well, what does it mean at 99 plus?
Oh, it's amazing. It's absolutely about a strong, obviously 100% is the only stronger number that you can have, but to have 99% plus support for a strike vote, and also the percentage of folks that actually participated in that. I've seen strike votes over the years where they're very high, but the percentage of members that have voted might be 60 or 70%. Here, very much like the education workers, that was a very high strike vote, and it was a very high number of members that participated in that. There's a lot of similarities. This strike vote is higher than that one, so I think that should send a strong message to the employer and to the government.
What's the latest communications we had with the Canadian Industrial Relations Board?
There was a hearing last night, so that was the latest, and there was an order delivered this morning.
So you won't answer because you had until noon to answer it, to have a written statement, so to understand that this won't happen today?
What kind of statement? Sorry.
It says that Jamie mentioned it, that you had until noon to make a public statement.
Oh, okay. Well, that's part of the reason we're having this press conference, is letting folks know that while we're very sympathetic and we don't want Canadians caught on this, but we will not be returning to the skies this afternoon.
On that note, I mean, obviously public opinion is so delicate on this.
It is.
Air Canada flies the vast majority of the flights domestically, internationally out of this country. How closely do you monitor public opinion that could quickly shift against you if this drags on days?
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, we're paying attention to what's happening in the world, including, how folks are feeling. We don't let polls dictate the actions of a union in any way, shape, or form, but we are paying attention, and as Candace noted, regardless of the polling, we are very, we're very sorry for the impact on Canadian people, and that's unfortunate that they're caught up in this. And It's not going to change our resoluteness. It's not going to change what we're doing as a union, but we do pay attention to it.
Now, they've run into a bit of a conundrum. And again, this is why I started the channel, just to make sure I could get the facts. Sorry, just the facts, just the truth to you all, is that CUPE really blew it with this last federal election. Because they were running lie and fear and hate campaigns against the Conservatives. But the craziest part that I think, well, Liberals don't get it, not the card holders anyways, is that Conservatives will still, no matter what, right is right is right. And when the West found out, and I say the West because it's definitely the strongest conservative movement in Canada, Western provinces came out, even though they are very mad, and they know that the Liberals definitely swayed and put the Liberals back into power with these lies. They're still willing to come forward and put their moral support behind what is right. So on a lot of different social media outlets, you are reading the majority of them are choked. And they're all throwing out the same thing. You beep, 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 beeping, beep, beep, beepers. You guys screwed Canada. But we're going to back this because we believe that you should be paid for work. We believe in a fair living wage. Far cry from the Liberals. The Liberals, on the other hand, are posting just the most craziest stuff. They're actually helping Air Canada to try to smear these flight attendants, saying how it's all their fault. They're greedy. I'm seeing lies, like some of the numbers coming out, and just blatant and left-wing media. And again, I could go on and on and on. This episode's already going to be an hour. I'm not even going to get into it. Just thought I wanted to voice that out there. So for all of those QP members who were listening to the verbal diarrhea being spread by your unions, I hope you're paying attention to those who are supporting you. I hope you realize you were wrong if you voted Liberal or NDP or Green for that matter, because this is socialism. You are serfs. They don't care about you. They only care about themselves, the elite, their friends, and all of the rest of the hooligans and in crowd who are part of this huge takeover of Canada. So I wanted to throw that out there. Let's get back to the last bit of this.
Is it possible your view is going to change at all today? In other words, Solidarity, the Bargaining Committee, and the whole executive, are you all in on this, or could that change today?
Hell yeah, we're all in on this. Like I said a number of times, we're here for those workers, and like you've heard, I fly a lot. I'm the national president, and Candace and others fly a lot. We get to spend a lot of time in the air and on the ground with these folks, and we're there for sometimes delayed an hour or two or three, and that's inconvenient for me and the public. But for those workers, for those flight attendants, they're working those 3 hours, those 4 hours, and not getting paid a dime, and that's just unforgivable. And that's what this is about. We want to make sure that those women and men get the pay that they deserve and that they're entitled to.
Last question, guys.
Will you go back to members at all in the next 48 hours to see where their heads are at on this?
We're talking to our members all the time, and there was a meeting last night from the components, and there was thousands of folks on there. So, and they are still very strong in their support for the union and the action. Absolutely. Well, we're in contact with our members all the time.
Thank you. So that's the end.
Thank you, everybody.
Now, why wasn't the conflict of interest brought up. Well, Alias, what do you mean conflict of interest? Well, the fact that the Liberal Party has brought in Maurice Tremblay to the Canadian Industrial Relations Board. Now, this is the CERB board. This is the board that they're supposed to go into, and these people are going to be the ones who say, this is what's going to happen, we're going to resolve this, and blah, blah, blah. And like they've stated, once it goes into the second Patty Hajdu did what she did and forced them into this confined office to settle the argument. The chairperson of this organization is Maurice Tremblay. Now, who is Maurice Tremblay? Well, let's break this down. Ms. Tremblay has extensive experience in advising and representing federally regulated employees in labor, employment, human rights, and human matters, blah, 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 blah. Prior to her appointment as chairperson of CERB, Ms. Tremblay was a partner of the law firm BLG. We're going to break that down here right away as well. But that's not the big conflict of interest. And a lawyer and partner in Hiden Blackie. That's another one. We're not even going to get into that one, but moving on. Before working in the private practice, Ms. Tremblay was senior counsel at Air Canada for 7 years. So, a representative of Air Canada, a lawyer who fought for Air Canada, and was involved in big disputes, a lot of hidden details, which I found lots, and they're all dead ends. They're all buried. Well, when you're dealing with big money and you're dealing with government, I need money. I need money, and time. Because this, you got to pay for all the freedom of information requests, and then the time, and really, you almost need lawyers in order to make sure you write it correct, because if not, they'll purposely send you the wrong documents. This is how government works, right? Especially the Liberal government. Now, this is a huge factor that has only been brought up a couple times, but really, how do you force any type of communication or fair dialogue somebody who is bought and paid for? And it's not just the Air Canada issue. Now, you can go right into, this is her LinkedIn account, and it tells you more about her. And I'm only going to look at one of the companies. The other ones, I dug, there's links there too as well, but this one I figured would be the bigger one because I actually brought this up on previous episodes. And this has a lot to do with Carney, Brookfield, and the green push, the elites, with their using legislation in order to, well, first you run the country into the ground, you buy out a lot of these little companies, you put them out of business through legislation, through poverty, through taxes, or not following the Green New Deal. And then all of a sudden, Brookfield and all of these other little wee companies that are all owned, operated, friends of, married to, somehow affiliated to the Liberal Party and these green zealots or the global elites like Brookfield. Well, this is one of them here. Fidelity was represented. Who's their lawyers? BLG. This was that private real estate investment deal with Brookfield. More conflict of interest. This involves Carney. I mean, these people were all sitting on these boards being representative. All part of this was going on while this is happening. And then, lo and behold, she gets appointed to what? Like, she gets appointed to the Canada Industrial Relations Board. Mainstream? Crickets. You got to remember, in the meantime, Canada, the media, was already out spreading fear, hate, and division They knew, Patty Hadjdu knew that they were going to pull Section 107 out of their butt and force these people back to work, just like they did with three other major strikes that happened. It shuts them up. The media can then quit talking about it. And then the Liberals don't plummet in the polls because the public, the voters, don't see it in their sights. But if it was in their sights and they were allowed to picket and they were allowed to argue for a fair deal, it would drive down the Liberals in the polls. Once you understand the brilliance of socialism and fascism and the elite, these people have not only endless money and lawyers, they run think tanks. Oh, by the way, yes, there's a few names that are involved in this that sat on these think tanks and were part of all of this Green New Deal. They're all in cahoots. Now, I can't say, oh, well, she was actually talking to so-and-so and that. That's not how it works. It works by people who know people, and promises here, and a little bit of this given over here, and then this company over here, and everybody is slowly lining their pockets. And as long as they're all on the same rail, that same path, they're all voting for the same thing, they're all pushing for the same agenda. So a lot of this is done behind closed doors. Some people aren't aware that they're part of the problem, even though they're dumb and are actually part of the problem, because they believe in some ideology or the socialist idea that you should force people to do things against their will, especially using tax dollars. Now, on a previous episode, which I got nailed because I allowed them to talk about the Pokey Poke openly and the Wuhan openly and a lot of the crap that went down with lockdowns and all the rest of it, which is my last episode, I got nailed. I'm still fighting a lot of, well, reports and some other stuff, negativity that came towards the channel. And I have no problem proving it wrong. It's very easy. I have to be the one spending hours upon hours upon hours at the computer, showing evidence in my own, kind of arguments with them in order to settle something that I should never have to argue about in the first place, because it's called freedom of speech, which we don't have in Canada. Anyways, that being put aside. The media has purposely been pushing Air Canada's hate, fear, and division. They started already closing flights down when they didn't have to. They could have pre-planned for it, which they already have measures intact for that, but they didn't. They didn't do that. Instead, they started doing it early. They started to try to use the people against the attendants. This is psychological warfare, people. Welcome to Canada. Now, I'm going to go to this. This is Patty Hadjdu.
The union representing Air Canada's flight attendants says it will risk jail time by directing its 10,000 flight attendants to remain on strike. That's after the Federal Labor Relations Board declared the strike illegal this morning. Flight attendants were ordered back to work Sunday afternoon after the federal government stepped in. The union said today that Ottawa is impeding workers' charter rights through this action.
It is an essential part of collective bargaining and for workers to have a say in their collective future.
And then this is what starts. This is power and politics.
So you've announced that your department will be launching a probe on unpaid wages. With what's going on now, everything we've heard from the unions right now, do you really think that's enough to mitigate workers' concerns?
Well, it's been one of the key components that we've heard of from flight attendants, and in fact many commentators that have been following along have been, really struck by the fact that the allegations of unpaid work have been repeated and consistent, and it's deeply concerning.
Allegations. Right.
As the Labour Minister responsible for the Canada Labour Code. Because in fact, the Labour Code has protections for workers, federally regulated workers, and in fact prohibits unpaid work. So I'm concerned deeply by this allegation, and if there are...
Deeply.
loopholes that employers are using to get around the Canada Labour Code, we have to know and we have to close them.
Okay, but a probe into allegations is not, everyone says this is happening and it's been happening for years. So it's not like the government's just becoming aware of this unpaid work. It's been a long-standing issue. There's been legislation put before the House by both opposition parties about this. So is a probe actually going to assuage what we're dealing with right now?
Well,
Nah. This I mentioned on a previous episode. The Conservatives brought forward a motion. And it was written in pretty solid English, whereas the NDP's was a bunch of goobity-goo. And really, it was crap. It was socialism. And they voted it down. Well, who voted it down? The NDP and the Liberals. These are supposed to be these are the parties that the unions have been backing. But because they're the bloody members, the workers who are paying these union dues and expect these protections, don't know about it. They have no idea. I had people reaching out to me when I had posted it on a few different social media links, and they were like, "That's fake news." And then some of them were like, "Holy shit, I read that. How come nobody told us that?" Propaganda. Propaganda.
I think I'll get to the root of the problem. In fact, I asked the Labour Department if they're...
They said if they would get paid for unpaid hours, they go back to work and be at the bargaining table right now. Why isn't Parliament open? Why are there no heads rolling? Now, I'm going to post this, of course, like I do everything. The links will be there. You can watch this verbal diarrhea. She's an absolute waste of skin. Patty Hajdu has no right to represent Canadians in any way. She's proven that her first year and a half in politics. She is a waste of skin as far as I'm concerned. Every file she's been given, she has just destroyed, along with every other child involved in the Liberal Party. We're going to break some stuff down here. We're going to bring reality down. The reason they're not bringing it and forcing Air Canada to pay and sending in government officials to literally open the books and start laying charges, drum roll please, is this. This is Air Canada's Board of Directors. Now, I thought this was going to take me hours upon hours to go through because you got to run everybody's name and then you got to chase all of the companies they've worked for, all of their ties, all of their links. It was so, like I said, they don't even hide in the shadows anymore, people. Now, I'm going to start off with a few names, and the one I end up with today is going to blow your mind. But it's all going to make sense. Let's go over just a few of them quickly. This is Michael Rosso. Now, if you read it over, it tells you where he was. Now, I'm only going to read the one. There are other links to other parts of the Liberal Party through some of these other corporations. But I'm going to name one right off, right clear. And this is the one that Brookfield has major shares in. Okay. So, he had served since January 2019 as Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, adding oversight and several significant corporate initiatives and businesses, including Air Canada Rouge. I'm not going to go any further. Like I said, there's piles more involved here that I could just start pulling paperwork, but I'm running out of time. Here's another one. Madeleine Paquin. Listen carefully. President, Chief Executive Officer, Director of Logistic Corporation, North American Marine and Environmental Services Provider. Ms. Paquin has served as Director of the Canadian Pacific Railway, Sun Life, Financial, Aeropost de Montreal, Chamber of Maine Commerce, blah, 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 blah. Now, for those of you who don't know, Sun Life has been involved in the whole dental scheme, the rollout, the insurances. These people are heavily Liberal associated. Let alone the fact that CPR, which as I showed in an earlier document, which again I will post on here, goes to show you how the Liberal Party has been involved in especially trying to hold monopolies within Canada, CN and CP. Now, for those of you who don't know, there used to be another big company in Canada. And it started back years ago with the Conservative government, and I believe it was Mulroney, who said, we're going to get out of the airplane business because the prices are too high and competition is best served to the taxpayers. So they privatized Air Canada. Then Canadian Air popped up. Now, Canadian Airlines had their head office when they started, and they started buying up a bunch of little companies. Where was their head office? Drumroll, Calgary. They weren't linked to the Laurentian elite. And what I have found is that they were almost purposely, it's, again, now this is my opinion through reading piles of documents, but it sure seemed as though the Liberal Party, when they got back into power, tried everything to regulate them out of business. And it even ended up with, well, separations at certain airports because of regulations, and of course there were excuses. Well, you know, how the now named Trudeau Airport, which again, that was done through people who worked for the Liberal Party and were appointed by the turd's dad. This all goes back way in time, people. And again, ties are all into this document that I posted on yesterday's episode, or my last episode. There are names in this, and you can chase these names. And for some reason, they all have ties to Power Corp, Brookfield, CNCP, Air Canada, all of these Laurentian, Bombardier, all of these companies that either through regulation, government subsidies, people they know, family members, those who are invested, are all tied to the Liberal Party. This is that Laurentian elite that I keep bringing up over and over and over again. And now we have a larger factor because now we have the global elite that have set their talons in Canada. So we're just going to fast forward to try and keep this episode somewhere near an hour. Let's just keep going to more of these board members. Gary A. Dewar. Great Life, Great West Lifeco, IGM Financial, subsidiaries of Power Corporation of Canada and Power Corporation of Canada. He's part of the U.S. Climate Group Board. I hope you watched my previous episodes because I actually kind of brought up some of these names and stuff when I was discussing how Trudeau sold Canada out to Trump. And how these climate initiatives, these NGOs who were sponsored and given money by rich oligarchs to shut Canada down. Like, do you see this? The brilliance of these people. And let's not forget that he's part of the Climate Group Incorporated. Like, all right, we're just going to keep going. Like I said, they don't even, well, they can't hide it, so they have to put it out there. But this is blatantly, where's mainstream? Christy J.B. Clark. Okay. PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP. Director of Loblaw Companies Limited. Atkins Realis, which is the new name for, drumroll, SNC Lavalin. You really can't make this stuff up. He's the director of Hydro One Incorporated and Brookfield Office Properties. Moving on. Army Shanday. Okay. Let's see. Officer of Waymo, Google self-driving car project, blah, 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 blah. Manager at Alibaba Group Holding. And then it keeps on going. Tesco PLC, Staples, Walmart. Consulted with, McKinsey and Company. I'll be damned. And who has been making record profits off of your tax dollars with the Liberal government? That would be McKinsey. Who in the background runs polls every day to try and see what they need to say in the media in order to keep the Liberals in power. This is McKinsey. These people are evil. It doesn't end. This is the Grand Putin Poot people. Annette Verschuren. Annette Verschuren is the chair and chief executive officer of North Star. The company develops, builds, and manages energy storage projects. She's the president of Home Depot, blah, blah, blah. 19 Canadian stores, and led its entry into China. Prior to joining Home Depot, Miss Verschuren... sorry, and I want to make sure you hear this. The company's growth from 179 to 179 from 19 Canadian stores. Chain of arts and crafts stores, blah, 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 blah. Masco Limited. Okay. Now, even though there's a lot in here, including the Canadian Natural Resources, Liberty Mutual, the Ontario Energy Association, the Sheeran Center of Sustainability in Energy and Environment, she's the lead of the Green Slush Fund.
And what exactly is the Liberal Party of Canada doing? Well, they're letting insiders line their own pockets, of course.
This is a staggering level of incompetence, willful ignorance, and corruption that has resulted in SDTC improperly distributing almost $150 million in taxpayer dollars just in the past few years and abusing dozens of people that have only tried to talk about the truth.
For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini to bring you a report that makes the SNC, Lavalin, and sponsorship scandals of the Trudeau regime look like small potatoes, where a whistleblower recently testified in the Canadian Parliament making scathing allegations involving Trudeau's $1 billion green slush fund. Before we get into the names of some of those involved, have a listen to this scathing testimony that incriminates high-level officials, conflicts of interest, and money squandering.
The Seed Fund, Ecosystem Fund, and Scale Up Fund were all found to be ineligible due to multiple violations of the contribution agreement, significant deviations from the due diligence process, and conflict of interest breaches by board members and executives. This finding encompasses nearly 200 companies that all received over $80 million, all of which was improperly funded using taxpayer money. The two COVID payments in 2020 and 2021 were also given to the full portfolio of companies and totaled almost $40 million, and were also deemed to be ineligible as the use of these funds was not effectively tracked. And several board members in that instance also violated conflict of interest by approving almost $4 million to themselves to over a dozen companies where they all hold significant ownership or executive positions.
Now, this is why Parliament was shut down. This is what actually caused the turd. All the pressure that forced propaganda. They tried so hard to hide this scandal, but they were seeing it in the polls. They did the whole back cover. We'll get him to resign. We'll appoint Carney, the king of the Liberal Party, and make all of this disappear. This is why Parliament is shut down right now. This is why the Liberals fled. This is why they shut down during this existential threat of Trump. Bullcrap. Do you see how big this is? This isn't just the flight attendants. This scopes a huge picture. Nobody's talking about all the links to all of this. Now, these documents, part of this whole scandal that shut Parliament down, are being withheld from Canadians till this day. In it are names of a bunch of environmental groups, agencies, companies, coalitions, personal people, NGOs, all of which are all linked to the Liberal Party. It is all money laundering, gifting. It is all done to buy votes to sway. We need to see this in file in its entirety. The RCMP can't do it because they're using parliamentary protections to withhold it. And now we're dealing with all of the tops of all of these branches, RCMP, you name it, all of it, are all appointed by Liberals. Canada is the most corrupt nation on the planet, people. And the only reason that there's not a lot of evidence proving it is because you have a government who's taken over so many agencies that it's being hidden from the public. Now, if the media was serious, they would at least bring up the fact that the person who's going to be leading these so-called discussions that they were forced to go back to work and discuss with is a Liberal shill and worked for the same company that's, well, working slave labor, not paying, not following the laws of our nation. But the Liberals don't care because they don't follow the laws. Let's listen.
Next, have a listen to this clip from May of 2023, which is the voice of Chief Financial Officer of Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, Doug McConaughey.
The very preliminary findings of the fact-finding exercise is that there is smoke around the vast majority of the allegations. We said we would believe you. Now there's enough evidence to say that we really do believe you. And that means that that the government is going to have to take action. There's a lot of sloppiness and laziness. There is some outright incompetence. The situation is just kind of untenable at this point. I think the minister is going to flip out when he hears the stuff, and he's going to want an extreme reaction, like shut it all down. It's unlikely that certain members of the board or the entire board and executive are going to be able to continue to serve. Like, they've kind of lost the confidence. So really the discussion will be the mechanisms for getting them out. First of all, we need to have control of the board, and in order to actually have a plurality of votes if we want to go after the executive. So that's the stuff where kind of the machinations we're figuring out right now. But the report implicates the board in terrible ways, by not following process, by not following the COI regime, by not being prudent fiduciaries. It's just a board failure altogether.
Indeed, all roads lead back to SDTC, that's Sustainable Development Technology Canada. The executive team is comprised of CEO Zihad Rahim, VP of Finance Cheryl Yuri, VP of Ecosystems Zoe Kolbick, VP of People and Technology Stephen Engel, and VP of Investments Brian Scott. The board of directors includes Judith Athade, Jill Earthy, Brenda Kenny, Carl Landry, Ellen McGregor, Guy Ume, Michael Denham, Leo DeBever, Sarah Kavanagh, Stephen Kukucha, Aaron Mahoney, Guy Marasti, and Joe Mark Ziri. There were 2 people and members tasked with operating independently of the board, and they were put in place to protect stakeholders, namely the Canadian public at large, Kathleen Sendel and Ed Vandenberg, who failed quite clearly in this duty. And all of this has caused Conservative MP Michael Barrett to ask, where is the money?
These Liberals and that minister was satisfied with their cover-up report and wanted the board chair and their CEO to implement the recommendations at this corrupt organization. But now with the Auditor General investigating and the Ethics Commissioner investigating 2 Liberal appointees, the board chair and the CEO have resigned in disgrace. There's $1 billion on the line, and we know that up to $150 million has been embezzled. Canadians can't afford this Prime Minister after 8 years of him and his NDP Liberal government. We want to know, it's very easy, who got rich?
Will the Liberals finally be held accountable for their continued corruption and flagrant disregard for ethics?
Of course not. Of course not.
Where exactly is the RCMP? Perhaps they're too occupied with diversity, tolerance, and inclusivity training? Apparently, this is only the tip of yet another conflict of interest riddled iceberg, so stay tuned.
Now, Board President of Federal Green Fund resigns amid conflict of interest probe. The Ethics Commissioner investigated payment of more than $200,000 to a firm run by Annette Verschuren. Well, now we found out that this ended up becoming actually hundreds of millions of dollars. We need this paperwork. And we need charges laid. Now, the fact that she sits on the board of directors of Air Canada should scare people, let alone the fact of all of these others who have ties to these, all of the, Canada has to wake up. They have corrupted every single thing there is in Canada. And like I said, this goes way back. This document alone, I have spent countless hours going over this document. The names, the affiliations from, you name it, Power Corp and all the rest, SNC Lavalin, just the people. And then you see people who were part of the lower end who were involved in this, all of a sudden later years running in politics or taking over corporations or getting government grants. This is endless. This is endless, people. It's time to boycott Air Canada. It's time for Canadians to get serious. This company, its monopoly, has to come down. Their record profits, the handouts, the regulations, and just wait, because there's involvement that I'm searching right now that follows through to a lot of the green fuel scam that Carney is involved in. That happened in the UK. That there are actually members that are in the UK in Parliament within that system that are trying to obtain documents that prove that there was direct involvement between Brookfield and its investing in companies that produce this so-called green airplane fuel, and the push for the Parliament in the UK to pass legislation forcing air companies to use it. This is the global elite. We're in huge trouble. We are in huge trouble. Now, I'm not sure how this is all going to roll out, but here's one thing I can say. I do not back any of that union crap. All of the lies. What I do back is people. And people can make wrong decisions when they're given the wrong information. And that's the problem with our society today. We have the most regulated propaganda state in almost the entire world. Russia has better freedom to information than Canada does. Let that sink in. It's hard to vote when you think lies, when all you know are lies. We need all these scandals opened up. The only way that's going to happen, literally, is if you like, share, and subscribe. And more people get to see the truth. Sorry, so sorry, just the truth. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. While Carney is in hiding and the world is getting together trying to end war, well, elbows up. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe. If you are, punch that notification bell. You can support us by purchasing some of our super groovy clothing at our store, or you can donate at the email listed below. Until next time, guys and girls, I'm Alias Tagay. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.